She's funny, she's smart, she craves chocolate every day, and she is the Greek goddess of comedy. Here is your host, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Karis' Comedy Corner. My name is Ellen Karis, and you are listening to the guest edition of Karis' Comedy Corner. I'm laughing because our guest is making me laugh already, and she hasn't uttered one word yet. I'm so excited. But before we get to her and her amazing story and film, we always have to thank the sponsors. Our first sponsor is Baywalk Marketing. Go to their website, baywalk.net, for all of your advertising and marketing needs. They can help you with any kind of a website. They can help you with a flyer for a show. They can help you analyze the demographics of your business, and they are experts in the Greek community. Go to their website, hollywoodgreeks.com, for all of the Greek entertainment needs, or hellenicfestivals.org to find out where there is a Greek festival near you. And trust me, this summer there will be Greek festivals, and you will be able to get the most delicious souvlaki you've ever eaten. Also, our other sponsor is Baywalk Marketing. You know, I always flub up the ads because I don't use the script, and I think I could do it impromptu, but I really can't. Select Flex. What is it? It's an orthotic. What's an orthotic? It's also called an insert, and you put it in your shoe. Well, what makes these different? I'm going to tell you. There is a geometric beam that is in the arch that can turn the arch from firm, extra firm to extra, extra firm, depending on what your needs are. I never, ever exercise without these in my sneakers, and I crank it up to 3. I have some in my other shoes that are 2 when I'm just walking around. If you work on your feet all day, whatever it is that you do, anytime you are standing up, you need to be in these orthotics. And if you go to their website, there's a 30-second video that shows you how it works. And for Karis Comedy Corner listeners, you get a 25% discount if you type in the code FAMILY25, FAMILY 25, because I think of you as my family, except you and I get along a lot better than everybody else I'm related to. So go to their website, selectflex.com, selectflex.com, and check them out. I love them. They are the best invention since sliced bread, as I like to say. Okay, or suitcase on wheels. I'm very, very excited about our guest because I have tried to get her on our show for quite some time. And before COVID, as you know, we were at the comic strip, so it was a little harder to get people to come in person. But now with, COVID just has made everything work out for everybody. I say that sarcastically. But now we can do it via Zoom. So I love her. I got to actually meet her a few years ago. We worked together in Binghamton, New York. And then we did a show at the Crane Theater for women of a certain age, funny women of a certain age, our friend Carol Montgomery's brainchild. But this woman has been doing comedy forever and has been on America's Got Talent. And I do not want to get the credit wrong. She was a quarter finalist and a fan favorite on season 11. NBC, America's Got Talent in 2016. She also is on Carol Montgomery's comedy Showtime special called More Funny Women of a Certain Age. And I am so excited because before I actually confirmed with her to do this, I came across her trailer for her new movie, Julia Scotti, Funny That Way, which just the trailer was hilarious and intriguing. And I can't wait to see the movie itself. But please give it up for my friend, Julia Scotti.
Hello. It just came in the mail today.
So for anybody that's listening to this on audio, Julia has been reading while I've been doing the ads and the intro, AARP with Michael Douglas on the cover, who looks very good, I gotta say.
I know they airbrushed him a lot because I've seen the Kaminsky method, but you know what? Something about that scarf. He's 76 years old, this guy.
Can I tell you, many years ago when he was like around his prime, I saw him in a restaurant. It was Shun Lee on the Upper West Side. And he was at a table, and he was married to his first wife, Deandra, I think her name was.
I remember her, yeah. I don't remember her. I mean, yeah. Of course she was beautiful.
Gorgeous. And Goldie Hawn was at the table.
Oh.
It was
Ooh.
like I was fangirling, and the person that I was with, I was very, very young at the time, and they were like, go, Goldie got up to go to the bathroom. And he's like, go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. And this way you could tell everybody for the rest of your life that you peed next to Goldie Hawn. And I'm like, no, I'm too scared. I'm too scared. Like now I would have totally gone up to go do it. So anyway, he looked amazing back then. So,
Yeah, well, he comes from good stock. I mean, his
yes.
dad was 106, right, when he died or something like that.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, nobody in my family has that kind of genetic pool. You know, somebody peed in our genetic pool. It's,
So Julia, I mean,
hmm,
you have been a stand-up comedian for how many years?
since 1980.
1980.
1980, just 41 years. I took 10 years off, but I was teaching, so it was the same as stand-up.
Right. What were you teaching, like in a regular school?
Yeah,
Or? Uh-huh.
I was a sixth grade language art teacher. I had gotten out with the intention of never coming back to comedy because I was transitioning, and I had just been, I was burnt out at that point. I mean, all my friends had gone on, not all of my friends, but a lot of my friends had gone on to become, super famous, super wealthy, and uh, forgot, wouldn't take my calls anymore. So
Right.
and so and I was tired. I was burnt out, and I was going through the transition, which, I did not want to do in stand up, subject myself to that kind of criticism. Although I found out after I left the business and was transitioning, there was a story going around about how I had lost my mind and I was getting a sex change, which is partially true. I mean, I did lose my mind, but that had nothing to do with transitioning.
Okay, so I didn't say this in the intro, but Julia was previously Julia Scotti. You were Rick Scotti.
What? Yes, I was.
And you decided to transition. It's fine. You're clearly the first person to transition that I've had on the show. I have to tell you something that happened. I have to tell you something when I met you.
Okay.
You and I met, I believe we met first at Carol's at the Crane.
Right.
Right? I think we met at Carol's first.
Yep.
Or we met at Binghamton first.
No, I think we did Carol's first, then we went up to Peggy Boyce. We
Then
did
we did,
Peggy
okay.
Boyce. Yeah, I mean, which I'm going back there, I think.
Oh, at Peggy's?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that was nice. That was a fun gig. And so you and I chatted. You're really nice. I watched you. You're funny. I loved you. I think you were great. You were on America's Got Talent. I was so impressed. And then subsequently, I think what happened is we went to No, we didn't go to Binghamton. No, it was before that. So anyway, I was talking to Carol, and I guess I didn't hear your entire set. I just heard other things. So later on, I was talking to Carol in a subsequent conversation, and she said something. I had no idea that you had transitioned.
Was that right? Really? Oh my goodness.
I didn't. And I'm like, no. And she goes, yeah, she used to be Rick Scotti. And I'm like, get out of here. And she's like, yeah. I go, really? I'm like, and I swear to God, this is exactly what I said. I was like, my God, she looks amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Really did not know. I thought I was talking to a woman, an original, a woman that started out as a woman. I don't even know what to say, but
that's all right. No, it's okay.
So it was, and then I was more fascinated, and then in Binghamton, I actually watched you, and it was just, you were so great, you were so funny. And then of course I looked you up on AGT and all that other stuff, and I admire you. I adore you. You're such a good person, and I can't imagine what that's, what you went through before. I mean, now obviously you're in a great place now, but when you really had to do this, you were married, you have children.
Mhm.
And so what, what was that like? I mean, when did you start feeling this way? And I think this is really important, because we have to have people like you talk about it, so people like me, can understand and get it. And we don't have to do it. We just need to be respectful. That's it. That's all I say about everything.
Yeah, no, I always knew something was, not fitting together properly. And uh, from about the time I was 21, maybe 18, I felt something was off, and I thought I was gay. And I just, I gave it a couple of shots, and every time I did, I wound up throwing up afterwards. And I went, well, I'm guessing gay guys don't really throw up after sex, unless you're into that sort of thing. And so I couldn't figure out what it is for years and years and years. And I married, I divorced, I married again, and that was going down the tubes again. And it finally, a person I was with, who I loved very deeply, she got me to understand what the issue was. She happened to be a psychologist, and I was spiraling down emotionally, and she just sort of pulled me up out of the depths. You actually hear her in the movie. There's a phone conversation that I didn't have, but the director of the film had with her. So she helped me get to where I was, and that was 19, I guess 1998, and that back then nobody, there were no trans people around. There was no internet around. I couldn't do any kind of research into what the hell's going on with me. And I really just felt like the freak of all time, and I tell the story. My very first year of teaching was 2001, and I went into class, and I had to live. You have to live a year before your surgery. You have to live in your new gender. I hate to use the term new gender, but you have to live that way before you can get approved by two psychologists for the surgery. And my first day of teaching, after going back to college, after graduating at the top of my class, feeling all great, my new career, the end of the first day, a kid brings a note, leaves it on my desk at the end of the day, and I'm going, oh, isn't that sweet? It left me a nice note, and he just opened it up, and it said, "Everybody thinks you're a man." And I was devastated. I ran out of the school. I was crying. I mean, I drove home. I didn't actually drive home. I drove over to. I lived down the shore area, and I drove to a town called Lavalette, which uh, I went to when I was a kid. My grandfather had a cottage there, and I was going to kill myself. It was October. It was an off season. There was nobody there. I was going to just drive the car into the bay, and they found me. They found me, and something stopped me at the last minute. And then they thought about it, and they said, "Well, I'm not going to let some 12-year-old punk kid, undo everything. I've come this far. I finally feel complete and whole and happy and at peace, and I love my work, and I love, teaching. I'm not going to let this kid ruin that for me." So I went back the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And I stayed there 7 years, and it was the greatest 7 years of my life. Those kids taught me more in those 7 years than I taught them. Uh, Wonderful. They were wonderful kids.
So did you transition while you were teaching, or you said you're,
I was hired as Julia. They didn't. I had graduated in 2000 from college. I went back late and finished late, and so they hired me. I worked for an organization called ARC, which is the Association of Retarded Citizens. That's their name. I didn't give. And they hired me out of ARC into the school system. So it was right after 9/11.
so what was there like an aha moment, or it was just like what did that feel like when you finally were like, this is what I'm going to do? And I just again want everybody to understand that this was in a time, although it doesn't sound like it's a long time ago, but for this situation,
Mhm.
it was a long time ago, and we've come a long way really in 5 years.
Yes, absolutely.
So
My partner at the time, like I said, she got me to realize what the issue was, and when it finally came to light, it was like St. Paul on the road to Damascus. It was the burning bush kind of moment. I just went, oh my God, I she's right. I am a woman inside, and I've always wanted, always felt that way. I come from a town in Jersey, North Jersey. It was very Italian, very neighborhoody, very lower middle, really lower middle class, not even middle class, just lower class. And it was a tough neighborhood. And you had to, the last thing I wanted to do was admit my feminine side, much less the fact that I felt like there was some sort of, genetic cocktail.
And I was just going to ask you about your family.
Mm.
And I'm Greek, so I understand. I know Italians, and there's
I got to tell you, before you go any further, I had my DNA done.
Yeah.
I am 9% Greek and Albanian. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, I'm glad. Welcome to the club. We're glad to have you. Because that's a very, and again, especially in that era, very testosterone, alpha male, very traditional, heavy. So how was that? I don't know, were your parents around or aunts?
No, my mother was alive. My father was dead already. And if he wasn't, this would have killed him. Now, I think actually he probably would have been the more understanding. My mother had this passive aggressive way about her. And she would, she said, well, what's your new name? I go, Julia. And she's like, oh, you don't look like a Julia. I'm going to call you Lydia. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why the fuck would you do that? What's the matter with you? And so we did, she did a couple other things too that we didn't talk for 4 years, and eventually we had history before that, but we didn't talk for quite a while. And so, toward the end of her life, we sort of came back together, but I was never comfortable around her. So, my kids, estranged with good reason. I could understand it. So we were 14 years separated from my kids.
And what was their reaction? What did they?
It wasn't good. I mean, they were young, and I was told in no uncertain terms to stay away, and I did, because I didn't want them to have to deal with that. And I felt when they got older, if they wanted to reconnect with me, they would, which is what happened really when they got older. But it was a hard 14 years,
Oh, yeah, very, really heartbreaking.
But my students filled a lot of those gaps.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's very interesting. We haven't even, we're just kind of scratching
I know.
the surface, but it's interesting how everything progressed the way that it has progressed, and to where you are now. I mean, you're like a pioneer in this. I mean, and you're talking about it too,
That was the point of the movie. Let me backtrack and talk a little bit about my I hate to use the word spirituality, but that's what it is. I'm a believer in being. I follow. Wayne Dyer's saved my life when I was transitioning. I've been a follower. I hate to use that term too, but I believe so much in what he says about the laws of attraction. And so at that point, the moment when I was going to drive the car into the other, I made a decision to let the universe guide me, to take me where I'm supposed to be, and stop fighting. And that's the minute I stopped doing that and started letting universal energies take over, everything started to change. That's why when people say, well, I can't believe this is happening, I go, well, this is the path. This is what I asked for. The universe always gives you what you ask for. I stopped asking for pain and misery, and I wanted joy and happiness and peace, and now I have it. It's I forgot where I was going with that, but that's part of why all this great stuff happened. I wasn't looking for it.
So when was it that you decided that you wanted to leave teaching and then get back into stand-up, and now as Julia Scotti?
I love teaching. I did not like the administration. As you know, we're comics. We don't do well with authority figures. So let's just leave it at that. And on a chance, I went back to stockbrokering, which I knew, and I was building a nice little practice, and when I was I came out of school, I got my license the day the market crashed, like 1,000 points in 2008. I'm literally in the airport,
Oh my God.
getting ready to fly home from training. And watch this. And I took that as a sign from the universe. So I stayed in it for a few years.
That's quite the sign.
Yeah, but it just, I couldn't sustain it because nobody was giving up any money, and the market, as we know, was in the crapper. So I sold the practice, and on a chance, I called up my friend. I don't know if do you know Chris Rich, the comedian?
I do, yeah. I've worked with
Okay.
Carol, yes.
Yes, and she's an old friend. I've known her since she started doing stand-up. And I called her and I said, "What do you want to have lunch?" I hadn't seen her as Julia, in quite a while. And so we met and we had a great time. It was like old times, laughing. And she said to me at some point, "So when are you coming back to comedy?" And I said, "I'm not coming back to comedy. I'm 60 something years old. I'm transgender." I said, "You think anybody's going to let me on a stage?" And it happened that she was working at the Comedy Works in Bristol, Pennsylvania, and which was a club that I had been working at since it opened. So I knew the people there. She goes, "Let me talk to Mike Kaplan, who is the owner, and you come and do a guest set." So I did. I went that night, and I went on stage. I remember this like it was yesterday. I started talking, and my opening line was that I was transgender, and people were looking at me like they didn't believe me, and I just kept saying, "No, no, I really am, I really am," and I got some laughs, but I came back a couple of weeks later, and it got much better after that, and then from that point on, and I was like a junkie, man, like tie me up, just shoot me up, and the rest is rock and roll. So here I am.
So, so how was the comedy industry in terms of the bookers more? I mean, comics obviously are a lot more embracing, but I would imagine, actually, I'm making an assumption, but how were the bookers and the industry?
First of all, I didn't know any of the bookers anymore. Everybody had quit the business. There were only like one or two that I actually knew, and they made me. These are people I've knew for 30 years. They made me audition, and I had to go. They weren't sure. How did they put it politely? We're not sure if people would buy her as a comedian, and she's old, and she's that, And I just decided, I said, well, look, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to be funnier than I was the first time in order for them to take me seriously. And I didn't know it at the time, but that's the bane of women comedians too. You got to be funnier than the guy comics on the show. And so what happened was I would go on the show and I'd just start blowing away the headliners. They had me as features until they couldn't deny it any longer. They would just go, "All right, you're gonna headline next show." That's my cat, by the way. Not me. I'm not I do make that noise sometimes, but not this particular time.
I love it. I love it. This is the first time we've had a cat on the show. So isn't that interesting how, because you're so talented and you're so good, I mean, you're just a natural. I could sit here for hours to tell you how funny and how you make people feel so comfortable. I mean, I sat in the back of that room in Binghamton and watched you, and even from when you said it, it wasn't like, tight. It was like everybody was relaxed. I mean, you're very embracing when you come in. To me, you walk on the stage and you're like, I'm your entertainer. I got stuff to tell you. You're not going to hear from that little Greek girl. Let me tell you, So you're just great. You just come on, and you're funny, and your stories and what you have managed to do, given what you've gone through and your life's choice, is genius. I really want to use that word because it's hard, and you know, you had your stand up, but you know, you did stand up from a different gender, and everything was different. So, you know, it's interesting how the honesty, you know, that came out, and I mean, I just love it. And then
Well,
when you got on America's Got Talent, and you know, just so for people that aren't in the industry understand, you know, television, regardless, is a wonderful medium to get a lot of exposure.
mhm.
And that show, and especially in 2016, I mean, you know, it's still, people still watch it a lot, but you know, back then it was even more heightened to get on there and to be embraced by that. And then you get a national exposure, was amazing. I mean, it was, you know, it was, I was so happy that that happened.
Well, it changed my life, and here's the universe working its magic again. I had a manager at the time who's like one of my closest friends still. She had to quit because she wasn't making any money off of me, but she got a real job now. But uh, I wasn't looking for AGT. I didn't watch the show. I didn't know much of. I knew it was a reality show. They found me and they sent us an email asking if I'd be interested in auditioning for the show at City College up in Queens. And so my manager, she said to me, "Oh, what do you look at this? You want to do it?" I go, "I don't know. I got a reality show." And she's like, these were her words. "Are you fucking crazy? They're handing this to you, basically telling you that if you go there, unless you truly, truly suck, you're going to get on the show," which is what happened. And so, thanks to her, I think, again, the universe worked its magic by bringing her into my life. Um, it, it did change my life. It did. But there was, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what was the experience like? I mean, how, I know a few comics that have been on that. You know, everybody's kind of got their own opinion, and you know, and then after the show, you know, how much work did you actually get, and did people
Well, everybody's opinion has to do with how they did on the show. I think it's all related to that, don't you
I mean,
think?
there's so much on that show. It's so different, you know, who's swallowing fire, you know, people juggling, you know, triplets juggling and tossing each other up. I mean, it's just so crazy, that show.
Well, I the very first show was interesting because they left it up to me as to whether or not I was going to do the reveal about being trans, number one. But there's a line in my first set, if you see it, where I'm talking about a ship sinking and I'm getting in the last, seat on the lifeboat, and the young girl comes and tries to get my seat away, and I say, fuck that. And I had an alternate line because I said, I didn't want to drop an F-bomb on national television. I mean, who does that? So I told the producer, Nigel, we were backstage, and he kept bugging me, and he goes, "Are you going to do it?" I go, "I'm not, that's my career on the line here, Nigel, because they will love it." And he said it in an English accent. "They'll love it, Julia." And I said, "Sure, it's easy for you to say. You're standing back here with a headset on. I'm out there where they can, tear me to shreds." He goes, "You're going to have to trust me." And I wasn't going, but the time I got out there, I still wasn't sure I was going to say it. And then came that moment, and I just took a deep breath, let it go. And next thing I really just sort of closed my eyes and waited for the reaction, and the place went nuts. And I kind of, I don't know if you could see it, but I looked to the stage left, just like briefly, and there, looking at Nigel, and and as I came off, he just looked at me and went, "I told you." So my experiences were very good. I knew I didn't have a chance in hell of winning. I knew at the very best I would do would be to go to the semifinals. I went to the quarters. I would have liked to have gone one more shot, but you know what? I got what I wanted out of it. They got what they wanted out of it. It's If you go into it with that kind of a attitude, everybody walks away happy.
So, subsequent to that, though, you got work, because those are great, great credits.
You mean, yeah,
Or
well,
did you get worse? That's my question. So did things really open up for you?
you can plot something on an arc. You get about a year's worth of notoriety where you can name your price, almost.
Mhm.
And then after about a year, till the next season starts, and then you're yesterday's news, and the next group of people comes up, and it's their turn. So I told at this point I signed with Omnipop. Tom and Jenny was my manager. And we love Tom, and
You just took the words out of my mouth. I love Tom.
we all love Tom. And so Tom, I said, we talked. I said, Tommy, we're going to get like a year out of this. I said, we have a year to put down tracks and make people know who I am, so that when I go back, it's not because of AGT, it's because of my act, that I'm funny. And that's what he did. And from there, a few years later, Carol Montgomery. Do you know the whole story behind this with funny women of a certain age? Did she tell you the story with funny women of a certain age?
I mean, we've had her on the show a bunch of times, but you tell me the story. You should tell it from.
I don't know if she
tell it on this show.
I don't know if she told this whole story. When funny women of a certain age came along, the first one.
Oh.
The first one. She
Yes.
called me and she said, I want you on the show. I said, I'd love to do the show, because I had done the ones at the Crane, and I love Carol. We go back 100 years. I said, absolutely, put me on. So about 2 weeks before the show, I go in I was going to get back surgery, and I go in. My doctor says, I want you to get a chest X-ray before you get the back surgery. So I get the chest X-ray, and they send me to a cardiologist, and he says to me, well, I think you've got some blockage in your one of your arteries. And he said, we'll do a catheterization. One day you'll be in and out of the hospital. I said, okay. This is well before Funny Women. This is like maybe a month before. I get in there. He's doing the catheterization. He stops. He goes, I can't do it. I can't finish it. There's too much blockage. He said, we got to get you to a hospital immediately. They throw me in an ambulance. They drive me from down here, Toms River area, to Newark, Beth Israel Hospital, which is one of the heart centers in New Jersey. I wind up with quadruple bypass, a replacement valve, and a repair valve, right? So I called Carol. I guess I got home right after Christmas, and we were supposed to tape January 14th, right? And I said to her, look, I didn't say it like that. I said, look, I may not sound like I can do it right now. But in 2 weeks, I'll be able to do it. I promise you, I'll be there. Well, suffice to say, it didn't happen. And I forget who she got to replace me, but what she did, and this tells you what kind of a human being she is. She said to me, look, if there's a second show, she goes, there's no question you're the first one I'm booking on it. And that's exactly what happened. And it came off without a hitch. Except, let me tell you about Carol too. She's devious. We're at the theater where we're shooting this thing, Bell House in Brooklyn. And I don't know if you saw the lineup, who was on that show.
So let me just interrupt you for a second. So
Yeah.
I did know this story. I did, and
Okay.
I remember one of the times she was on, she did mention it. It was Thea Vidal that they got to replace you. And then of course I knew that you had the surgery, and I also knew obviously via Facebook, of course. And then because I couldn't go to the first show because I had to go to Florida for a show for me, or a show that I was hired to, but I did come to the second show. So I saw you on the second show. So I came to the Bell House, which was great. Yeah.
So you saw me close that show, right?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that. She tells me an hour before that show. Now this is a powerhouse lineup. This is like, Carol Leaf was on the show. I'm just, you can go down the list. Yeah. Oh my God, Carrie, it's just killer acts. She says to me, oh, by the way, an hour before the show, oh, by the way, Julia, you're closing the show. I was like, are you insane? I can't follow those people. Again, Carol, she just said, yeah, you can. I know you can. She goes, I have faith in you. And boy, she was right. They wound up, when they cut the show, they put me in the middle when they edited it. When you see the actual version on Showtime.
Oh, yeah, I know. I did see the edited version, but I don't remember that. But I mean, I remember.
I remember that.
I mean, it was just, it was so great. I'll always be in awe of what Carol has done.
Yes.
And quite frankly, it's only because of COVID that it's been at a little bit of a standstill. As much as I know she's trying to do a few things at the Crane. Once this freaking thing is over, you guys will be back. And because I know, because when she came on the show, you guys were booked in Texas, and I mean, you had a whole bunch of shows that were lined up that unfortunately got canceled. So
well, now we've got this movie that's coming out, and this began 5 years ago.
Your movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's about me. It's not my movie, but it's about me. The movie was produced and directed by a woman named Susan Sandler, who wrote the film Crossing Delancey. If you know the movie with Amy Everett, yeah, she wrote. It was that's her, and we met up in Nantucket. Jane Condon had a gig up there, and she booked me up there, and I love Jane too. She's another sweetheart.
Jane's the best.
Yeah, she is the best in so many ways. And
I want people to notice, I'm sorry, that, I can't talk about LA, and I was actually just on a show about New York City comedians and women comedians, and I can't talk about LA. I can only talk about New York, the tri-state area, as I call it. And it really is a huge, huge support system. The longer you're in this and you all go through the journeys, and especially like a subset of the women, because we have our own challenges, and it's really great. And Jane, I mean, we can rattle off a million women that we love it. Jane is also one of them, like Carol.
Well, I in particular had that additional. I've got two additional things, that I had to over. One is age, and the other is the trans thing, because there are people that all you have to do is look at the comments on YouTube from my America's Got Talent sets, and you can see the kind of shit that's out there.
Vitriol.
Yeah. So, but I mean, yeah, go ahead.
How were you? I wanted to ask you this before, and then I want to get to the film. How has anybody ever in a live audience said something to you that after the show that was inappropriate?
Not after the show, but I've told the story a number of times. I was in Florida, and I was having breakfast in the hotel the morning after the show, and this very nice woman, and I'm prefacing it by saying she was African American because it's important to the story. Comes over to me and she said, "I was at your show last night." I said, "Oh, I hope you had a good time." And she goes, "No, to be honest with you, my husband and I got up and left." I went, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And I said, "Did I offend you in some way?" And she goes, "Oh no." She goes, "Your lifestyle offends us." And she goes, I'm a pastor. This is why it's important. In an African Methodist church, and my husband's a bishop, and we find you abhorrent. I go, "Do you even know me?" She goes, "No, but your lifestyle, I said, "Do me a favor, just sit down, have breakfast with me." And to her credit, she did. I said, "Have coffee with me." She said, "We wound up having breakfast," and because it was a buffet. But we sat for an hour, and we went. We had a very thoughtful discussion. I told her exactly where I was at, and she told me exactly where she was at, and I said, I'm a former Christian. I told her that, Catholic. I said, but she said, "God doesn't make mistakes, and you're treating God like he made a mistake." I go, "God, I'm not a mistake. God, he made me exactly the way I am. And if anybody's being not the greatest Christian in the world, it's you and your husband." And I said it in a nice way, but so we parted company, and she thanked me. She goes, "I still don't agree with the way you live your life, but I appreciate that we had this dialogue." And so that's the only time anybody's ever actually come up and did something. The people that don't want that I creep out, will not come to my shows. They're not just not. I don't care. I mean, you don't want to come, don't come.
That's very interesting that the woman was Christian and that was her basis for being uncomfortable. And I am a Christian. I am Greek Orthodox. I teach Sunday school. I believe in Christ. I can go on and on. And my feeling about all that, and just very quickly, I grew up in the church, and then I veered. I didn't want to, I just didn't want to do with it. I was like overloaded with the Greek and the whole thing, whatever. And then later on, I really felt like I was really missing something. I was making bad choices. I wasn't living within any kind of good boundaries. And anyway, I went back to church, and it was great because I went back as an adult and I read scripture in the way that I interpreted it, and just listening to everything and interpreting it as an adult. And what I come to, and I am a Sunday school teacher, and I have kids that are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade now. I used to have the littler kids, but for a while, I'm very, very ardent teacher of respect and support, and that we all are God's children. I can't change the rules of the church, in terms of not letting people be married that are gay. If it was up to me, I personally, be a good person. If you're a good person and you have love in your life, that's going to spread throughout. And, I feel like my religion is very old. It's like the old.
Yes.
And some things have definitely changed for sure. But there's still some rigidity to it that I think over time will change, because people will change with it. So, in answer to the woman's, the Christianity and the lifestyle, and, where in the Bible did it say, that's your interpretation. So Jesus was about love and compassion and respect and helping people, and was not about that at all. And I feel like, Christians get a bad name because, there are groups that, say that out loud, and it's like, you're not speaking for me. So let's just, let's just.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I said to her, I said, look, and I didn't mean to get this interview off into a discussion of religion, but I said to her, look, how you feel is perfectly fine with me.
Mhm.
If you want to feel that way, who am I to argue with me? Where I draw the line, though, is when you start to inject your religion and your morals and everything else into my life, and to tell me how to live my life, and to tell me what God thinks of me, and how do you know what God thinks of me? Does he talk to you? Where I come from, people who hear voices are called crazy. I said, if you want to go there, we can, but I don't want to do that. It's not my business who talks to you. All I know is just to stay out of my life and out of my pants. I think I said that to her.
You know what? She needed to hear that. That definitely is a good end to the set.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is a mic drop for sure.
Stay out of my pants.
So just tell us about the film and about how that all came about. And again, I just saw the trailer and it was fabulous. And
Thank you.
And to have your kids in it, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see this.
About 5 years ago, I was up in Nantucket working for Jane Condon, and we did a show there. I forget the name of the theater. Great, it was a lot of fun. Anyway, after the show, Jane introduced me to this woman, and she introduced herself as Susan Sandler, and we said, we're all going for drinks. Why don't you all come with us? So I said, sure. So went over across the street or wherever we went. We were sitting talking, and Susan was positioned, I remember this, to my left. So we were really close talking all night. And at one point, she was going to help me with a one-woman show because she had this theatrical background, having written a number of plays. And as time went on, we were talking and talking. And when she came back to New York, we were talking again. And at one point, she said to me, listen, I don't think the play is the way to go with you. She goes, has anyone ever approached you about doing a documentary? I said, not really. Who would want to see a movie about me? So that's Italian Catholic, worthlessness Catholic background. And so she said, I would like to do it. Now she's never produced a movie before. She's a professor at NYU. She teaches script writing, screenwriting. Um, this was, and except for Crossing Delancey, which she didn't produce, she just wrote the screenplay. I mean, the thing was a major hit, but we began to talk about it. And one day, a film crew showed up at my house and started shooting. And over the next 5 years, followed me back, progressively back. Even when I was in the hospital, they sent a crew while I was while I was laying in bed with tubes coming out of me. But so, it's real.
And I mean, what's the plan for, what's the release? Is it a Netflix? Is it where?
It's a on-demand release. Yeah, so it's all platforms. It's going to be on just everything.
June is June 5th the release date?
June 1st.
June 1st, the release date.
My birthday.
Oh, is it really? Oh, that's amazing.
They didn't know that. They were coinciding it with Gay Pride Month, but I said, that's my birthday, right?
The universe. I want to ask you a question about this. So the one thing that I want to get your perspective on, and I say this only from a medical perspective. So just to let you know, I'm not like a drug person. Like I don't take they have to tell me my throat's infected, or my head has to roll off for me to take an Advil. Like that's the kind of person I am. I always say I'm the only woman on the Upper East Side that's never taken a Xanax. Not that I shouldn't. I'm just saying I've never. So and God, I'd love to get a little this and that or whatever, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to save my big surgery for like when I really need it. I'm going to accrue it. So all this to say that I'm not great with like optional medicines and what I do it unless it's an emergency. Okay. So with that said, when I hear stories about kids and again, it really is, it starts from childhood at some point, like you said, I think with most of them, or they think that something's off and then ultimately they come to the conclusion. My only concern is that trying to change, and I don't know what the law is, so you probably know this better than I do, but it doesn't look to me, just from a medical perspective, that it would be a good idea to change children at a very young age, only because they're still growing, the hormones, all of that, just from a biological perspective. But so where are we with that? And like, how do you feel about that? Because you did it, of course you did it as an adult. It's very big, and it's taxing on your body, but
tell me about it. Yeah.
Right. That's really where I'm coming from with that. But like, so how do you feel about all that?
I don't know what the current protocols are. I do know that they, the last time I checked, they waited until puberty was over. Like they wouldn't do anything till 18 or so. Sometimes they will. Let me backtrack there. At the onset of puberty now, if they've gone through enough exams from psychologists, etc., I think they will now put a kid on hormones or testosterone blockers. If you're male to female, from what I understand, if they do it early enough, it's not as big a deal as you're making it sound. You have to understand, all children start out as female, whether you're male or female. Eventually, in the womb, everybody is female, and it's only that Y chromosome that makes the difference. Once that Y chromosome kicks in a quote male child, all the secondary sex characteristics start to come into play. And they believe that if the fetus is not washed with this particular type of testosterone while in utero at a particular time, that transgender kids are the result of that, which may make sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. And so I know that I felt right long before my surgery. I felt right being female, whereas I never felt right being male my entire life up until that point. And it was that quick, just the realization that I was, and that I could accept that I was, and that the person I was with at the time accepted me for what I was. Um, I, I don't know. It seems if the parents have to be on board with the kid. They have to really support the whole thing. There are parents that don't, and that is why there's still a very high percentage of suicide attempts among the trans community. It's still up around 40%. Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Again, I can't, just because it's not something that I went through doesn't mean you can't have compassion for it and support it. And it's something, and it used to be like, well, what are there, two people? Now it's like, no, there's a lot more than that. I mean, it's a matter of who wants to come out and be honest with it.
Well, gender is they look at gender now more as a continuum.
Mhm.
It's not black and white only. There's a gray scale, and you fall somewhere on that. I still have, I don't know, I guess it's learned behavior, but I have, things that are considered male that I still like, I mean, I like Westerns, I don't know if that means anything.
That's so funny.
I do. Saturday morning I watch Westerns. I just like them. Oh, I like Bonanza, and then I can't because I can't help it. Pernell Roberts is on, and he's on. But and people confuse sexuality with gender too. That's an important thing that you should make mention of here. I was attracted primarily to women before.
Mhm.
Still attracted to women now.
Mhm.
That doesn't change. Two different things.
Right. Interesting. So I do have to ask you too. It looks like Caitlyn Jenner will be running for governor of California. So very, very good timing to have you on and for that to have just been announced. So what's your perspective on that? She's running on the Republican ticket,
Oh, what a surprise! Yeah.
just to let you know, I'm finding this fascinating.
Is
So
she really? She's running on the Republican
she said she's
ticket.
going to run as
She just won't give up, does she? She just doesn't give up. I don't care what she does. You know what? I really don't.
living in California, but
I don't give a flying fig what she does. Please. Next subject.
okay. Fair enough. Just that it just happened, so I wanted
No,
to.
I know.
So, and your kids, I mean, we're going to see it in the movie,
Mhm.
but you're in a good place now and everything.
Yeah, more with my son than my daughter. I mean, she still got some issues to work out, but I mean, we talk, and and she knows I love her, and my son and I are much closer. He's really a lot like me. He's more like me than he is.
Interesting.
No, yeah, not in the gender way. I mean, but mindset. He's very creative. He writes. He was actually does a podcast, and he's into sketch comedy. He writes that all the time. Yeah.
And you mentioned a little while ago about ageism. That is something that I can speak to as well. And people, I find like we can't talk about this enough because this affects lots of us. And I find show business, which is supposed to be the most open of industries,
Oh, please.
closed-minded. I've been in accounting. I've been on Wall Street. Nothing is more ageist than this business. And why Carol created what she created, especially for women more than men. And it's not like we hate men. It just that's the way that it is. And I want to, I will go my last breath to like break that barrier. Like, what is the problem? I just don't get it.
I don't know what it is either, because in any other profession, and even in show business, if you are a violinist, say, and you age, and you're a virtuoso, the older you get, people want to come out to see you. If you're, a Shakespearean actor, uh, the older you get, people want to see you do Shakespeare, even at 80. Singers, Tony Bennett's 96, can't even remember his name, the poor baby, but he's still singing.
Last
They,
night, Anthony Hopkins won. He's 80.
yes.
Or the
So
father.
I mean, but in comedy, you hit a certain age and you're aged out. I say no. Just put me in the club, put me in coach, and I can say honestly, I haven't had that much um, blowback on it. They're a little shocked when they see me. It's one of the reasons I let my hair go white, stop coloring, because I said, all right, I'm going to embrace this person, whoever she is, that's coming out from under my roots. And I didn't know what was under there until I stopped, right? But I kind of like it, and
You
and
have
so
nice hair, by the way.
thank you.
Lovely.
Um, it's my mother, not my mother's hair. That's in the coffin with her, but this is my hair. But I realized when I started going on stage as an older, without trying to cover up my age and owning it, that the audience really came along for the ride. And I just became this crazy old lady, and I was fine with that. And I can ride that train, right into the sunset.
Right, right. But I mean, funny is funny. And, to go back to actually comics that were older, that were male, Don Rickles, all these kind of people. I mean, if Rodney Dangerfield was still alive, he'd still be doing comedy.
Yeah. Joan Rivers, is the only one that comes immediately to mind of the females that took it right to the end, and she would have still kept going had they not, botched the surgery and
Yeah.
done what they did. But I can't think of another female that. Well, Phyllis Diller did it toward the end. Ooh, I'm sorry. Did you hear that? That was a little gas bubble came right up out of nowhere. It came from the bowels of hell.
Happens.
I had a lot of garlic for dinner yesterday. Phyllis Diller. Who else?
That were that old, much older.
Yeah.
I can't even say a lot of the women, like a Toady Fields, she died
Tony Field. Well, she died in pieces, though. I mean, that was so sad to watch.
earlier.
I'll tell you what. I got to tell you this, and we touched on this earlier in the gender issue. The female comedy community welcomed me in a way that I never, ever, ever thought would happen. Open arms.
Great.
Just it was like a big hug, and I'm sure that had it been the other way around, the male male groups would not have been as kind to me had I been a female to male transition. Um, somebody, I wrote this joke about. Somebody came up to me after a show once and said, "Why did you want to change your sex?" I go, "I don't know, because my salary was too high." And that's going on the album, by the way. That's a new, yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Tell us about you. Are you recording? Where can people see you? Give us all your social media.
Right. Well, right now we're recording a new album in November, but you can get this one now. Julie Scotti, hello boys, I'm back. It's got me going into a men's room. This was back when in North Carolina wouldn't let me go. They wanted me to go. And then on the back, it's got me going into the ladies' room. So, but you can get it anywhere. Download it on anything. So we are going to be taping in November, I think. We don't have an exact date yet, but I will release that when it comes to it. You can go to my website, which is www.juliascotti.com, SCOTTI.com. It's got my schedule there. You could find me.
And all
That
your
comes,
social media.
yeah, all my social media is there too. So,
And look out for the, I want to make sure I get this right, Julia Scotti, Funny That Way movie, premiering June 1st on Julia's birthday. So you can wish her a happy birthday and tell her how wonderful the movie is. And I can't thank you enough for doing this. You are
oh, my pleasure. I thought.
for you. I'm so grateful to know you. And thank you for your honesty. And and you know what? You're helping so many more people than you can actually
I hope so.
ever be aware of. You are.
I hope so.
I bet the farm on that. And I think that that's really great. And
I hope so, and I thank you for that. It's important to me to do the right thing for people, and to that's what we're here for, to help people,
exactly.
and make them laugh.
Yep.
What better job could you have?
I'm so with you on that. Thank you so much. My name is Ellen Karis. You can go to my website, ellenkaris.com, ELLENKARIS. You find my schedule and clips and all that. I am on Instagram and Twitter, of course, at Greek Chick Comic, Facebook, Ellen Karis, Greek Goddess of Comedy. And you can find also on my website all of the podcasts that we have done for the last 6 years. Yes, folks, 6 years. And I'm so proud and I'm so grateful for all the wonderful guests that we've had. I am humbled and I thank you. Till next time. Bye.
Bye.